Welcome to FO Exclusive. I'm Atul Singh, the founder, CEO, and editor-in-chief of Fair Observer. With me is Glenn Carl, a retired CIA officer and a senior partner at FOI, a political and geopolitical risk advisory company. In December, we look forward to 2025. It's actually December 31st when we are recording this. And we boldly go where only fools, angels, and astrologers dare to go. So what so what should you watch out for in 2025? Well, in one sentence, a more volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world, VUCA world, which is very popular in the Pentagon and some other places. And the first thing to look forward to, and I sit in Washington, D.C., and Glenn's somewhere near Boston, is a turbulent Donald Trump second presidency. So, Glenn, over to you. You're a great leader. You're a fearless leader.
That's passing the buck. Um, well, I'm interested in the Pentagon's current VUCA obsession or love affair, talking about ambiguity, turbulence, and uncertainty, because for all of my career and all my adult life, I've made an ostensible witticism when asked to describe how policymaking works in the government, and normally the CIA will say, well, this is happening, that's happening, and we think this might happen and that might happen, but we don't really know. And the State Department will wring its hands and say things are very, very complex. The policymakers will be frustrated and they'll look to the Defense Department, which says that I have a plan to capture that hill. And since they have something positive to say, they usually will win the arguments. But now they seem to be either wiser or more chastened and are sharing our views that no one really knows what's going on. In
Or
with that as a
maybe they've
preface,
got tired of taking all those hills in Iraq. They were really tall and steep.
that could well be. So there are, I think, 6 topics we'll talk about that we think are worth signaling or highlighting for 2025.
Actually, 7, Glenn, and
Uh,
it's seven now because we are also covering
okay.
Africa. And we'll be
Yes,
quick.
right.
We'll obviously not do this in an hour. Today will be a longer session, but brace your seatbelts. We will be precise and concise to the best of our ability, as only we can be. And carry on, Glenn.
Right. I will. We will seriously try to be concise because each subject is actually a lifetime study, of course. So the first one is a turbulent Donald Trump second presidency, the significance of Donald Trump on the United States and international affairs. And I think perhaps one should think of the book by Milan Kundera, The Unbearable Lightness of Being. And I'm not being wholly facetious here. What do people do when they lose agency in a sense that they have an investment in an ability to influence and to share in the direction of public social affairs? Is that when they don't have that, and when leadership seems to be capricious, all-powerful, and unchangeable, then they retreat into themselves and to the world of nature and the senses, particularly to sex. In the American case, it might be beer and football, but disaffection does lead to social disengagement. And already we see signs of that, all of which is very disturbing. I'd say, to summarize grossly, we should look out for 3 particular issues to be affected and to help shape what will happen in the first year of the Trump second administration. And they are immigration, protectionism, and a continued weakening of U.S. global leadership. So immigration, this really, to me, is the underlying driver and issue that can explain much of the MAGA phenomenon. I say MAGA, my daughter, who's now a Californian, chastens me for speaking in a local dialect instead of saying MAGA, but no matter. the changes and stresses on traditional American society, which has never been static, of course, no society is, nonetheless, from immigration in particular and social change and increasing diversity more broadly, I argue is really what underlies fundamentally the Trump phenomenon, the populist rejection to the elite's norms and to globalization. He has said, Trump, that he will deport 13 million illegal aliens. Um, that strikes me as highly unlikely, if only for the practical considerations that entails. But immigration is really, I think, the top issue in American political life. It will affect political discourse and stability and paralysis or change. It will affect the United States economy profoundly, depending on the extent of change to current immigration policies and numbers and populations, and it will affect the U.S. Socially profoundly. We can be certain that there will be huge debates and arguments on this. I think the extent to which Trump's stated agenda is realized, I think, is very much in doubt. But change and turmoil there will be. Protectionism is a component, the second item of the entire Trump phenomenon, profoundly isolationist one. In that sense, an American in line with American historical currents. Although this one is more related explicitly, openly to xenophobia and frankly racism in many ways than other expressions in history of American isolationism. Although racism has always been linked to isolationism in American history too. So protectionism is the one size fits all solution that the Trump acolytes and Trump himself say will address economic competitiveness, wages, employment, and employment. I did say yes. So I think it's an easier step to take to increase tariffs and barriers to entry for foreign goods than to deport millions of people who are really the reason for America's economic dynamism. But this too will be very, very controversial and will have rippling effects, not just domestically, but globally, increasing over time inflation, increasing employment, actually, as they claim it will, its proponents in some sectors, but overall impoverishing relatively the U.S. economy and thereby the global economy. And then the third thing is weakened U.S. global leadership. An isolationist, almost by definition, is not going to be a leader internationally. And Trump will revert to the policies that he pursued 4 years ago of being wary of, if not destructive of, U.S. alliances, multilateral approaches to issues, be they global warming or the struggles in Syria. And therefore, since the U.S. remains, even more than the premier inter pares, still remains by far on almost every index the most powerful nation on earth, if the U.S. steps back, things fill a vacuum, and they do so chaotically. So I think those are the three trends that we'll see immediately start to play out as a result of Trump's taking the White House the second time.
And we can see when it comes to immigration, civil war has broken out within the Republican Party. And it all happened when Donald Trump selected Sri Ramakrishnan, a Tamil Brahmin, a Tam Brahm, as you'd say in India, who did his undergrad at SRM Institute of Science and Technology. It was named something differently. This is a private university. So he didn't make it to any IIT, but he went on to have a spectacular career in the tech world. and became a general partner of the American venture capital firm Andreessen Horowitz, this Silicon Valley firm run by Mark Andreessen and Mr. Horowitz, and he headed the firm's London office. He spells both with Elon Musk and Boris Johnson, so he must be a very bright chap. And when Donald Trump appointed him as an advisor on AI,
they are financiers, you know. People.
Anyway, Laura Loomer, a lovely, charming lady who wants to make America great again, criticized Sri Ramakrishnan's appointment. And then a war of words broke out on Twitter, now known as X, that bastion of free speech. And this whole debate was not just about immigration, but about American culture, whether American culture can produce the best engineers, whether it values science and technology, or does it value cheerleaders more? Free speech on the internet, the influence of tech bros in the Donald Trump campaign, and also what does MAGA really, Make America Great Again, really stand for? Now, David Sachs, who is a former PayPal executive who will be White House AI and crypto czar, he came out in favor of Sri Ramakrishnan, and he argued that the tech industry needed to bring in foreign workers because there aren't enough Americans who actually are studying maths, as Vivek Ramaswamy put it memorably, and who aren't doing their homework. And of course, Elon Musk stood up for him, and eventually Donald Trump stood up for him. But the counter party argued that, hang on a minute, the only reason you bring in these workers is because they are cheaper. And this exerts downward pressure on American wages. And this is the whole argument against free trade, because you buy cheap stuff from outside, workers elsewhere get paid, workers here lose their jobs or their wages go down. And immigration and protectionism, when I speak to members in the Trump campaign, they see it as two sides of the same coin. And what they really want is both restricted immigration and protectionism to raise American workers' wages. Now, this is a very important and interesting graph for you to look at. You should go to LinkedIn and look at the FOI page. This is something managing partner Sanjay Acharya made, and it's very interesting to see the difference in wages. So it is clear that Indian companies do pay less, and it is also clear that the H-1B program does lead to tensions in the US. And there is chatter amongst the MAGA crowd, and it's broken out in the open. Now, the argument about cheaper is that everyone uses cheaper workers if they can for higher profits, and it ultimately ends up benefiting the American consumer. And these arguments can carry on. But the key thing to note is that the Republican Party is fractured. The Democrats are rubbing their hands with glee. And when it comes to global standing, Trump's talk about, well, why don't we take Greenland? Why don't we take Panama? Canada is the 51st state, is creating extraordinary tension, especially amongst allies, even before he has taken charge.
So all of which makes me, brings to mind for me the repeated experience that every generation that comes of age believes that it has discovered sex, and no one else ever knew about this before. And here you have the MAGA crowd who is seized power and is discovering the contradictions in robust immigration, needs for high-tech skilled people, and the disruptions that can cause economically. It's an old debate. It's just new zealous xenophobes and isolationists are now starting to call the shots.
Join the conversation at Fair Observer and subscribe to our YouTube channel.